Hi, Pastor Steve here. I want to thank you for listening today, and I want to encourage you because I know that God will truly bless you as you study His Word. So, hey, let's get started.
Hello, church family. Matt here to share a devotion from our study of Mark. As Robert said last time in our study of chapter 11, we're in a transition from a study of the first 3 years of Jesus' ministry into a very detailed study of the last week of his ministry. And as we transition out of chapter 11 to chapter 12, Jesus is teaching in parables. And in Mark chapter 12, verse 12, it says that they, the Pharisees, were seeking to arrest him, but feared the people. For they perceived that he had told the parable against them. So they left him and went away. We see the Pharisees are very troubled by the teaching of Jesus, that they recognize that many of the lessons that he's teaching about God and his kingdom and what it looks like to be a part of that go directly against the things that they do and the way that they operate. And so they devise a plan to test Jesus. They are going to trip him up. They recognize that he's got mass appeal, that a lot of people are engaged by his teaching and are following him and listening, and that if they were to just come in and take him, there would be riots. There would be a lot of pushback. And so they devise a series of tests, basically no-win questions that they're going to pose to Jesus. And they use a couple maneuvers or tactics to do this. One of those is flattery. They're going to come and they're going to flatter Jesus. They're going to say, "Oh, you're such a great teacher." And so we see starting in verse 13 of chapter 12 that some of the Pharisees and some of the Herodians came to trap him in his talk. And a great lesson about Jesus right off the bat is that Jesus is a unifier. Jesus unites the body with God, but he's also a unifier on the opposite side of that spectrum. In Avengers Infinity War, there's a great battle taking place. Thanos is bringing all of his legions and armies to attack Earth, and there's a scene where T'Challa, who is the king and leads in Wakanda, is approached by M'Baku, who leads another tribe. These two are rivals and enemies. They lead differing tribes, and they even battled for the throne. But they have, in this instance, a common enemy who's bringing a threat, and so they unite to battle together. Well, here we see the Pharisees, who would be the conservative branch of the temple, and the Herodians, those that have stepped in line with the government who is leading this territory, that represent opposite ends of the spectrum. And they don't get along and they don't like each other, but Jesus is a threat to both. Jesus is a threat to the political power that the Herodians achieve by devoting themselves to Rome, and he's also a threat to the power that the Pharisees have gotten over the people in his conversations about the kingdom. So they're going to team up to attack Jesus. So they came to him with their flattery, and they said, "Teacher, we know that you are true and do not care about anyone's opinion, for you are not swayed by appearances, but truly teach the way of God. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Should we pay them or should we not?" But knowing their hypocrisy, he said to them, "Why put me to the test? Bring me a denarius and let me look at it." And they brought one, and he said to them, "Whose likeness and inscription is this?" They said to him, "Caesar's." And so the situation is, they ask him, is it lawful to pay taxes? And this was a huge issue amongst the Jews, because Caesar literally required a poll tax of the people. This was a tax on your life. You had to pay a tax to breathe Caesar's air, to live. And as a Jew who believed in a God that created all things and that created life itself, this was hard for them to do. And so the Pharisees came saying, if Jesus tells us to pay the tax, we're going to get the people in an uproar, because he's telling us to do something that goes against our devotion to God. It's idolatrous, because we're basically telling Caesar that he is the one that gives life. And the Herodians are there Because if Jesus tells them not to pay tax, they can arrest him and charge him with sedition or insurrection, that he's trying to take the people away from Rome. So it's a no-win situation. It's a no-win situation for Jesus. And so Jesus, in all of his wisdom, says, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." And they marveled at him. Jesus takes this test, and he just flips it on its head. He looks at the coin, and he says, "Whose image does this bear?" And they say, "Caesar's." And he says, "Well, give to Caesar the things that are his. But render to God the things that bear his image." And what do we have that bears the image of God? It's ourselves, our lives. We, as it says in Genesis, are made in the image of God. We bear the image of God. And so it is crucial and important that, yes, we render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, but even more importantly, we give our lives to God. We devote ourselves to everything, devote everything that we have to him. And they marveled at this teaching because he didn't let either side win. He didn't give them what they were looking for. Rather, he challenged them to a new way of thinking that said, my entire life belongs to God. And so I'll give a coin that bears Caesar's image on it to Caesar. Sure, that's fine. But my life belongs to God. And this impacts the rest of the teaching throughout chapter 12 as he's continually being tested. He's tested about what the greatest commandment is. They want to put him to a test because they want to see him answer a question that they can trap him on. Because if he says one commandment is more valuable than another, they're going to accuse him of heresy, of false teaching. And instead, he flips it on its head again and tells them in verse 29 of chapter 12, "The most important is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." And the scribe that was listening said this, "You are right, teacher. You have truly said that he is one, and there is no other besides him. And to love him with all the heart and with all the understanding, with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself is much more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices." You see, he flipped their entire perspective on its head. So much stock had been put on the activities, the sacrifices, the offerings. And he said, the greatest thing you can do is to love the Lord your God with all of your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And it impacted this scribe to the point that Jesus said, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And after that, no one dared to ask him more questions. This perspective, as we watch the progression through this chapter, as they try to trap him with their pride and their arrogance, we see the humility on display of Jesus, the wisdom that he gets from God, and his ability to have a perspective that everything belongs to God, and he is the main goal of life, that our purpose and existence is for him and for him alone. And he's able in this way to challenge us as believers to be molded and shaped by the Spirit, to have that same perspective, to render to God what bears his image. So this week, my prayer is that as we study Mark and as we look through this, that we would ask God to show us areas of our lives that we don't give to him, that we don't render to him, and that we would be challenged to a greater devotion and love of God and a greater devotion and love of our neighbors. Have a great day.
Thanks again for listening today. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like more information about our church, or if you just want to share what God's been doing in your life, drop us a line. Give us a call. Again, may God bless you.